I'm Steve Jones, the Chair of the Calvert County Planning Commission. Welcome to the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan and Zoning Update Workshop. Joining me tonight is also Vice Chair Maria Bueller. We'll be in listen mode tonight. We hope to garner some good information from the public, and we greatly appreciate the participation from the public. I want to turn the meeting over to Mary Beth Cook, the Director of Planning and Zoning Department.
Good evening. It's nice that everyone could join us this evening. I'm going to read some rules of procedure. The Calvert County government staff appreciates your attendance and welcomes your input this evening. Tonight's meeting is scheduled to begin at 5:30, and we have an absolute drop dead at 7 p.m. to end. There is a Board of Education meeting this evening. In case someone wants to attend that, you'll be able to do so. The workshop will be streamed live on the Calvert County government website and Calvert County government webpage, Facebook page. The workshop will also be broadcast live on Comcast Channel 6 and 1070 HD. During this workshop, participants will break into groups. Each group will receive the same series of questions to discuss. Please keep the group focused and on the preset list of workshop questions. Please be courteous of other opinions and thoughts. Be brief with your comments while in the group setting. Allow others to contribute. Everyone has the right to be heard and to provide their feedback. No signs, posters, or visual background messages may be displayed during tonight's workshop. At the end of the workshop, groups will present their findings. Please be courteous of other speakers. Refrain from clapping, cheering, or jeering, or other disruptive loud noises that contribute to an intimidating atmosphere. Participating county staff are subject matter experts charged with carrying out the operations of county government on behalf of the Calvert County Board of County Commissioners. Staff do not set policy. We ask that attendees be mindful that staff and consultants are here to provide insight into the master plan update and will not engage in political dialogue or discussions regarding ongoing litigation. And with that, I will turn it over to Jenny.
Good evening, everyone. So glad you could join us. I'm broadcasting live from the Calvert County Courthouse, the Commissioner's Room. Most everybody is virtual, but we do have some staff members and the Planning Commission Chair here in the courthouse. What I'd like to do is just note for those who were not able to join via the Zoom workshop, we are inviting your comments on the breakout topics, and we'll be giving more details about that later in the presentation. But I did want to assure you that even though you're not in the Zoom workshop, we do really want your input. I'd like to introduce the other staff that is here this evening, either in person or virtually. We have Judy Makel, Deputy Director for Zoning, Carolyn Sunderland, Deputy Director for Planning, Paul Conover, Planning Commission Administrator, Tamara Blake Wallace, Principal Planner, Christine Finnemore, Principal Planner, DeCarlo Brown, Planner 2, Ruth Davis Rogers, Planner 2, Jessica Gattano, Planner 1, and our Mistress of Ceremonies, Scarlett Sutton, Office Specialist 2. Would also like to introduce you to the consultant staff. Jamie Kendrick is the project manager for transportation for Saber & Associates, a Mead and Hunt company, and he is joined by staff from Eric Weber, Albert Engel, Molly North, and then also Matthew Fitzsimmons of Horde, Copeland, and Machat have joined us. I'd like to take special note that our communications and media relations staff, Kevin Schmidt, Daryl Baxter, and Terrell Gross are here in the courthouse. It's through their expertise that we're able to bring this to you, both in Zoom and broadcasting. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Jamie Kendrick, who will take it from here.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully this all technology is working. We're going to do these breakout sessions in a couple of minutes that are new to us, so please bear with us. Matthew Fitzsimmons, if you can hear me, would you just give me a quick thumbs up? All right, so we know the sound is working. And if you can see a slide that says planning framework since 1970s, could you give me a thumbs up? Excellent. All right, 2 for 2. So thanks, Jenny. We do want to make this interactive this evening, not just present you with a bunch of information, but we do think it's important to just briefly set the stage in a very direct way about what has occurred in the past 30 years since the first Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan began. Now, 30 years is a long time, but that's how we should be thinking about these master plans as a long-range endeavor. So this process is not about a site plan that might be in for design review right now, or a developer's proposal that might come along in a year or so. It's really about building a framework for the long-term growth and development of Prince Frederick that is in line with our values. And since the 1980s, the county's planning framework has been to preserve rural landscape and direct growth towards vibrant town centers, including, I would say, the adoption of the transferable development rights program to direct growth away from farm and farmland to more appropriate areas like the town centers. And so the results of that have not been perfect. There has been progress in some areas, and progress has been slower in other areas. Calvert County has been very successful in preserving farm and forest land, and still has some work to do in terms of creating vibrant town centers. So shown in green on this map is the agricultural lands or farmlands or forest lands that have been preserved through some type of a conservation or agricultural easement since the 1970s. The map also shows in blue and in orange where construction has occurred in the greater Prince Frederick Central Calvert County area. So blue is residential buildings that have occurred since the 1970s. And orange is the kind of non-residential, could be commercial, could be institutional or government uses. So as you can see, from the period 70 to 89, a lot of that occurred on the outskirts of the town center. And this is when the first town center master plan for Prince Frederick was developed. In 89, the Board of Commissioners set in place a vision for Prince Frederick that included a mix of residential, commercial and institutional land uses that were integrated through architectural tools, open space requirements, pathways, and low volume loop roads that would give local traffic an alternative to Maryland 2-4. The master plan and accompanying zoning ordinance allowed for up to 14 residential units, apartments, townhomes, single family homes per acre. And as you can see in this map, these are the 8 districts that were established. Each had their own targeted density and design requirements. And architectural requirements to promote that small town feel. And the east and west loop roads are in various stages. So the western loop road has been constructed over the years, as have a number of smaller road projects. On the east side, some form of a loop road has not really been built, except for some improvements along Armory Road south of Dares Beach. Since the town center master plan was adopted, the forest and farmland tools again provided strong guidance, but that didn't quite go far enough to direct the growth into the town centers. So, for example, on the west side of the loop road that was built, some of that development was shaped in the town centers, particularly up where the library and some of the shopping centers are, the aquatic center. Down here in the southwest has been some, but not much of the residential growth has stayed outside of the town centers. Some of the retail was developed in the north end. The library opened in 2006. The aquatic center, the college campus was opened in 2005, although that's a little bit more than a mile outside of the boundaries. So I'd say that from 89 to 2020, the growth has been something of a mixed bag in terms of shaping development to the town centers as we had hoped. Then you may have noticed that kind of in that process, I skipped over 2013, which was a milestone year for the county, which was when the Prince Frederick Town Center Charette was conducted. And the reason I skipped over it to this point is because while it was good to reaffirm the core vision of the 89 master plan, it was never officially converted to county policy through a new town master plan or a zoning ordinance, although of course there have been a few amendments to the zoning ordinance since then. However, for those of you who did participate in the charrette and its activities, you clearly articulated to the commissioners, to the Planning Commission, that you expected a higher quality of design, more open space, and better transportation choices throughout the town center. And so I'd like at this point to turn it over to Matthew Fitzsimmons, who's going to talk a little bit more about the charrette and how it related and how it relates to updating the town center master plan. Matthew.
Great, thank you, Jamie. So the design charrette established a whole host, was a very comprehensive process, and had created a whole set of goals. And really those goals boiled down to three major themes: creating diverse land uses within the town center, either single family, multifamily, senior housing, as well as looking at commercial, civic, hotels, and even expanding employment, particularly at the hospital site. It also looked at creating places for people. We'll look at some images of what the vision was from the charrette, but open spaces that were anchored by residents and employment centers. And then, as Jamie talked about earlier, really creating a walkable town center with lots of mobility choices were kind of the themes coming out of all of these goals for the town center. So having created those goals, next slide, Jamie, the charrette created a series of policy recommendations to help foster that growth in the town center, which some of these haven't yet been completed or implemented yet, but some of those have. For example, the notion of expanding the town center, particularly looking to the west out towards the College of Southern Maryland, as well as the reform of the TDR. And with that, some of those reforms to the TDR, we'll see in a minute, have actually potentially helped increase opportunity for redevelopment in the town center. As well as another one that's been, or in the process of being implemented, is looking at the Armory Square site and getting that into position for redevelopment at the corner of Route 2 and Dares Beach Road. Next slide. So I'm going to walk you through what that vision was. This process in 2013 created a wonderful collection of imagery, starting from, on the left, kind of a mixed-use Main Street for the redevelopment of the Fox Run area, and then the kind of a mixed-use center around at the Armory, and creating that public square that's anchored by lots of different amenities and land uses. And even in the historic courthouse area, looking at a new public space that could help really transform that, be used to enliven that community. And so while these are beautiful renderings, we put up some images on the bottom that show you that these are within the realm of possibilities. And these are some precedent images in the state of Maryland. Some examples of great public spaces in Frederick to commercial uses in Maple Lawn in Howard County. And next slide. And not only did the vision look towards commercial buildings, but it also established a vision for residential development within the town center. Something a little bit more urban than I think you're seeing in the rest of the county, but looking at kind of a townhouse language to a small scale apartment building on the top right image. And again, these housing types are found in the state of Maryland, ranging from the kind of the single family, very walkable single family houses on the bottom left, to the mixing of townhouses and small scale multifamily in the center bottom of the image. One of the images that wasn't necessarily shown in the design charrette, and perhaps we can talk about that later in our breakout session, but looking at that vertical mixed use typology of a building where creating apartments over residential, it's a little bit bigger in scale, but you can start to afford that engaging, exciting street level experience that was seen in some of the other images from the design charrette. Next slide. And so here's the map showing what's been built since 2013. And on the right-hand side is kind of a bar chart showing what the program that was intended to be developed out of the design charrette or projected from the design charrette, And you can see the little sliver that's kind of a gray reddish color of the light blue shows you what has actually been implemented since then. So while it projected a lot of commercial and medical expansion, almost over 2 million square feet of commercial and medical office use, only a little bit's actually been implemented. Again, for housing, again, there were a variety of housing options from senior housing, multifamily, and single family. And of what's been implemented is mostly been in the multifamily range. And again, in the map, you can see development on the outside of Prince Frederick, but a little bit happening in the core, particularly, right in the kind of central north and the central south part of Prince Frederick. And I'm going to let Jamie take it away.
Great, thank you, Matthew. I would just remind folks that we sent out a link to this to the website that gives you some of these maps. You can certainly take a look at your leisure, but we think it's a good way to show how the growth and development has occurred in Prince Frederick over the past 30 or 40 years. So we're going to move now in a minute to our first breakout session, where we are going to talk about what we call the park analysis. And each of you will be randomly assigned by computer to a breakout group that should have 5, 6, maybe 7 people in it, along with one of our staff to facilitate the discussion. And each group will get about 12 to 15 minutes to try and come up with a few items in each of these categories. And then the facilitators will send their notes back, and I'll summarize at the end of the session. So the question really is, as we look forward to developing the master plan over these next few months, what is it that we want to preserve, add, remove, and keep out? Now, those might sound a little bit harsh to you in terms of keeping out or removing, but think about it this way. What do we want to avoid? What don't we want to happen in the Prince Frederick area over the next decade or so? What is it that is positive and should be reinforced? What do we not have, but we need or we desire? And then what are the existing negatives that should be eliminated over time? Now, this doesn't mean that we'd be looking to eliminate a particular retail store or a particular shopping center or a particular housing type, but it could be that we want to kind of over time change some of the sidewalk or the areas without sidewalk by removing those parts of the community that don't lend themselves to pedestrian friendliness. You could also look at that from the ad perspective as well. What are some of the positives that should be kept and reinforced? And many of you have lived here 20, 30 years and can really help us to understand what it is that can be built upon in the Prince Frederick Town Center. So in a couple of minutes, Scarlett is going to press a button and it is going to transport you into a group. I will tell you that this is the first time we've done this kind of virtual breakout session. So please bear with us, be patient. Hopefully all will go well and you'll teleport back to us in about 15 minutes. If not, let me just say good night and have a great day. Now, we feel reasonably confident that we will get you back in about 15 minutes. But before I do that, I want to just talk about who's going to live here in Calvert County, and more specifically, kind of in Prince Frederick in the next decade. If you think about young people and our school-age children, we actually are only expecting to see between 300 and 350 new students over the course of the next 10 years or so in Prince Frederick, in Calvert County. And I would say that almost all of those new students are coming out of development patterns in the northern part of the county. And actually in the kind of greater Prince Frederick area, the middle part of the county, we're expecting, even if not slightly negative enrollment growth in Calvert County. So think about the young people, their service needs, their school needs over the course of the next decade or so, that we may not need additional school capacity. And that might frame how we move forward with certain laws or ordinances around development over the next decade or so. And then on the other end of the spectrum, for those of us who are nearing retirement age, that would not include me, we are expecting that the proportion of folks who are 65 plus, maybe nearing retirement age, is going to more than double over the next decade or so. So we urge you to think about what are the services and the housing needs that a more retiring age population is going to require over the next decade or so. So those are some of the things you might think about. Think about the patterns of growth and developments that have occurred over the past couple of decades. Think about who will likely be living here over the next couple of decades, and do your best to help us think about the park. What is it that we should preserve, add, remove, or keep out over the next decade or so through the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan. So with that, we're going to have about 12 to 15 minutes in your groups to come up with the ideas. Your facilitators will do their best to guide you through the process. Let's try and get everybody talking. And with that, Scarlett, if you are ready, you are going to press a button and we are going to teleport into separate rooms. Thanks for sticking with us thus far.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. I would like to say a few more things before we move into breakout rooms. As stated before, we are being recorded for record keeping and future broadcast. Please also remember to keep yourself muted until you're ready to speak to avoid any interruptions. For those of you on a computer, you can mute and unmute your audio or video by moving your mouse, then using the buttons on the toolbar on the bottom left of your screen. You can also mute and unmute yourself using keyboard shortcuts. If you're on Windows, press Alt-A, or if you're on Mac, press Command-Shift-A. In the event you get disconnected, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that that doesn't happen, you can please attempt to re-enter by using the link that you used to enter this first time. I'll keep an eye on the waiting room and let you in just as soon as I can. When we're ready to close the rooms and return, you should see a notification at the bottom of your screen saying the rooms are closed with a countdown of when you'll be moved back into your main room. You can either press the button at that time to move then, or wait for the timer to count down. Finally, I'm going to move us all into our rooms. When you're ready to go, you should see a prompt saying that I'm trying to move you into a breakout room. Just say, okay, we'll move into the breakout rooms and we'll continue. Have a good night.
Evening.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi there.
Hello, Mrs. Krimmelmeyer.
Yeah, good to see you.
Hello.
Good to see you too. Hello, Shelley. Oh, and you're on mute. You can unmute yourself. I would like to let the people in this breakout room know that I'm going to be going from room to room, so I'll be with you a few minutes, and they're following me to recording. So thank you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
So we don't have Christine, who should be our note taker.
Can you ask Scarlett where Christine might be?
There's Christine. Hi, Christine.
Hello.
We're good.
I got put in a different room, but that's okay.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, you made it with us now. So do we just have, so Tiffany, Daryl is part of
Staff. Yep.
staff.
Well, wait a minute. This is a really small group.
It
Hey, small groups are good.
is.
You get more time to talk.
So, well, let's start. If we get some more that comes in later, great. If not, we'll just have to get the opinions of who we have.
Okay, well, how many people work here and how many people are citizens?
We're all citizens, but we also, I work here, Christine is staff, Daryl is staff, and is Tiffany Blake?
I believe, yeah, Miss Blake, you are muted. But I see Mr. Zyman. Correct me if Zeman. Okay, thank you.
All right, my name is
Miss
Shelley.
Miss Krielmeyer.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Krimmelmeyer.
Krimmelmeyer, thank you. And Miss Blake is muted. And hopefully I got Blake right.
Okay, so that we can make sure we get to all of the areas, and just in case everyone else starts with preserve, let's start with what we'd like to add first. So would anyone like to start? What do we not have but you think is needed?
Seniors, single-family homes.
Senior single family homes. Okay.
Similar to Wildwood.
Similar to Wildwood.
Wildwood in California.
Okay.
California, Maryland, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay. Anything else that
We definitely need better transportation for people who can't drive and for handicapped people.
okay.
Can actually afford the rent, or if a small business person can. So I don't know if should be some type of incentive to encourage businesses and other businesses to come in, because I just kind of see it. No matter, the town center is somewhat of a disconnect because of who's in there, and there's not really a connection for more people to come. Everybody comes for a different reason. The library is the center reason for a lot of things in that particular area of the town center.
Okay, so to summarize what you said, I put overpricing of retail spaces for small business and other retailers.
Yes.
We want to keep that out. Okay.
No, to encourage that or give incentive for people to come into that area.
Okay.
Conversely, I might add, what we're seeing is growth along the sewer line, but not in the town center, on some strip malls, like on 231. And that really has to do with the point that the prior spokesman dealt with, but it also distracts from the clustering, if you will, of the town center, and also limits what I think will be the expansion of the boundaries.
So water and sewer connectivity to the town center?
Water and sewer connectivity to the town center should be the driving force for the boundary expansion of the town center.
Okay. Okay, and what you said first was basically you wanted to keep out.
So what I want to keep out are these strip malls on the fringes of town centers.
Okay. All right. So as we move on, what things would you like to preserve about the town center that you have here now that you would like to see that are positive and you'd like to see reinforced?
Well, I tell you what I'd like to see growth in, whether that falls in ed or preserve, I'm not certain, but given the demographic.
And that's just going to get worse if we encourage more dense residential development in the center. Over.
So that would be something we could possibly add to keep out for you?
Sure.
High density residential or just any residential? Cluster?
High density. I mean, to make, I think to make Armory Square work, you have to have mixed use with some residential over commercial development, restaurants. Otherwise, it just winds up being a ghost town in the evenings, kind of way Old Town is. Over.
Understood. Thank you, sir. The one quadrant we have not addressed yet is preserve. You did address that in some of what you were saying as far as that old town feel. Would that be appropriate to put in for you?
For me, yes, but I've talked enough. Other people need to weigh in.
Carl, I can't see anybody else. So once you catch up, let's see if we can go back. Make sure you spell check before you send that in. Michelle, how do you feel about that? Can do thumbs up again? I like that. Thank you. Ashley, Ron, anything to chime in on?
Can anyone hear me? This is Ron.
Yes, sir. Thank you for chiming in.
I guess from the point of view of preserving, I would just like to put in a pitch in for preserving as much of the greenery that we currently have in the town center. If you looked at those maps, there are still quite a few trees. Now, I know when you develop, trees have to come down usually, but I think we should strive to somehow preserve as much of the what I call pervious surface that drains rainwater very quickly, and not end up paving paradise, basically making it all roads and parking lots. And that's a hard balance, but I just want to make sure that under preserve, we think about the fact that we do have a lot of greenery in the town center that we should try to hang on to.
Okay, very good. DeCarlo's going to share his screen. We're going to make sure that he captured what you were commenting on. And feel free to hit any of the other quadrants as well while we have you. Is the greenery and green infrastructure enough for you, sir? Would you like some more added?
You mentioned about that other building, since we're running out of a little bit of room here, that kind of falls under the remove and improve poor architecture. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be good with that. Anything else?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to Donna. Donna?
Well, I don't really think anything needs to be removed. I think Prince Frederick is a beautiful area.
Okay, that sounds fine. Okay, so let's go and let's go to what do we want to add? And let's start with, am I putting you on the spot, Sally, to start with you again? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Of course you are, but that's okay. No problem.
Okay.
I just had to think ahead here. What do we want to add? I think we need to take downtown Prince Frederick, what Main Street part of Prince Frederick, and we need to develop that area, make it a walkable, usable community. It's better than it used to be, but being some places to eat and some different kinds of office. And maybe
are you talking about the Old Town area?
I'm talking Old Town Prince Frederick.
Okay, develop Old Town.
Yes.
What else would you like to see? Anything else? Or your husband? Is he?
I'm good. I'm good on develop Old Town.
Did you say you wanted to keep it walkable, to have it walkable?
Have it walkable. I'd love to think of us as an Easton, as some place where when you work in Old Town Prince Frederick, you can walk to some place to sit down and have lunch. You can stop someplace and have coffee and walk to work. And just,
so we could say eating and shopping options.
Yeah, arts, a community kind of place for people to gather in the Old Town area.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, perfect. We'll move on to Bob. What do you think, Bob? What would you like to add?
I'm going to speak for my wife, Dr. Estes. I guess what I would like to see is improvement in the roadways before anything is done. This one lane highway that they added from, I guess it's Old Field Inn all the way up to the, I guess it would be the Giant. It really hasn't made a big impact. It's still heavily and it's bad. And we have accidents all the time. So I don't know how to word what I'm trying to get at here, but I guess you can tell I'm kind of not for this.
So roadway facility improvements or traffic safety improvements, roadway connectivity, that sort. Yeah.
Yes, and also, I'll be honest with you, I'm on the end of it, preserving the way of life of farming and everything else. That's going out TDRs. don't even matter anymore. I mean, most of the farmers can't make it on today, and I understand that. I really do. But if I would like to put in the preserve of farm leaving more land for generations. I mean, as far as trees, you know, we are at a point now where we're paving so much, the infrastructure of our sewers and or storm drains can't handle what's going on now. The rain we've had this year, it's been unbelievable, unbelievable. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
I'd like to add something. I would add something else on that. As we're developing within Prince Frederick, instead of using a lot of asphalt, the last gentleman made a very good comment. As we're developing that, instead of having runoff, we need to have surfaces that are perhaps gravel that will absorb the runoff in the rain. And I think we need to look at that more. And there's something, I grew up in this county back in the 50s. And it's amazing the difference that's happened. I grew up on what's Howland Point Road now, then it's called Barstow Road. And before we do anything in Prince Frederick, something has to be done to 231 with the amount of traffic that's there and the accidents that have occurred there. You've gone double lane from the Prince Frederick Boulevard, and then it goes back down to 2 lanes. And if you do a study, you'll see all the accidents that have occurred from the circle there at from Prince Frederick Boulevard all the way down to Howland Point Park, and particularly there at Tate Road and Mason Road, the rear endings and everything. And before we do anything, because the amount of traffic, that's not an artery road any longer, because that's a major fairway between Route 24 over to Route 5. And you see semis and everything using that, trucks and everything, and it's something.
Community center for the children to go to. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good input. Let me specify that.
And I don't even believe they have like a bingo. I mean, for the older people, I don't know if they have one or not. Like bingo or like paint and sip. I mean, stuff like that to keep really the money coming into, you know, Prince Frederick area. You don't want to have to go to DC or, you know, to the harbor or something like that just to have fun. You want to have stuff that's, you know, where we're generating money for our community as well. You know, instead of just giving everything over to, you know, DC or, you know, Virginia, Alexandria or whatever.
Since the population, as they had mentioned earlier on one of the slides, the increase with the population at 65 plus, I do feel like we need to have more activities, more venues for that particular group that has been identified than what we currently have.
Yeah, because the more that, excuse me, the more that they have to go outside, that's when they get in, I wouldn't say like all young people will get into trouble or whatever, but it will keep them, you know, wanting to be in this area. Because a lot of people, let's say when they, you know, get over 18, they're like, I want to move from Calvert. There's nothing to do in Calvert County. And I love Calvert County, and I would never want to say that. I'm like, this is my home, you know, it's all I know. You know, so I never want to be that statistic, like, no, I want to leave. So you want to have something to keep the people here.
So I'm going to actually put something in the remove category based on what you just said, which, you know, the feeling that you have to, you know, or feeling that you have to leave as something to remove from, we're getting cut off here. Let's get to keep out before quickly. Just quick hits. What do you think we should keep out of Prince Frederick? We have 10 seconds.
The metro coming down Route 4.
Oh yeah, it's already crowded there.
I've heard that many times about having metro. We have because of the traffic congestion and.
Just want to say, Harry, thanks a lot. I know we cut you off on your last statement there, but I think we got that. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I got, yeah, it's going.
Yeah, I'd like to apologize to my group too. We got a little cut off, but I did finish that thought.
Yeah.
All right, are we back?
Yeah, I believe we're all back.
All right, and people can see the screen with the 4 boxes on it? Matthew, give me a thumbs up if that's the case. Excellent. I'll just give it about 1 more minute. So thanks for doing that first session. We're doing well on time. Let me just kind of summarize quickly. I don't think there's any major surprises on here. There was a lot of consistency among the groups. That there's a real strong desire to see more sidewalks, more walkability generally. That there is a real understanding that we need to provide more in the way of housing and services to keep our seniors local and aging in place. Excuse me. That there is a concern about continued development of strip malls and the big parking lots that come with them. Obviously, a big emphasis on preserving the kind of old town feel and maintaining our green infrastructure, the farms and the forests and the streams, and people's ability to access them with trails. And obviously, the big talking point in all the groups in terms of was to remove barriers to crossing Maryland 2-4, as well as all the extra access points, the driveways and side streets that take you into Maryland 2-4, that add to the congestion in the area. So I think that there were some common themes, and I did pop into every room and was very pleased to see all the folks participating. So if you just bear with me 1 second, I'm going to switch back to my original slideshow. And I'm ready, Charlotte, to share again, if you paused me. Here we go. Okay. Great. So the next session, we're going to take just a little bit of time, more quickly this time, to talk about what it is that we can do to shape growth and development through a town center master plan. So there's actually a lot of things we can't influence, right? We have no control over national economic conditions that are like those that are occurring right now, or on the other end, the major expansion that we saw from 2010 to 2018. We also don't have control over consumer preferences. Internet shopping has redefined retail long before COVID. The big McMansion style houses have somewhat fallen out of favor. So we don't really have control over those items. We don't really control the kind of land that we have. We've got beautiful country from river to bay, lots of streams and forests in between. But we do control how those resources are used and managed. We can't completely restrict the rights of a property owner to use or to sell their land. We can put some reasonable restrictions on it. And we have a lot of control over school capacity. We can add, we can build schools, we can add seats to schools. Although, again, as we discussed a little bit earlier, we don't have a huge need for additional school capacity in the Prince Frederick area. Two of the big things that you can control in a town center master plan, and we have a lot of influence over, are the zoning and design requirements. So how much density, what are the setbacks, how wide are the sidewalks, all of those types of considerations that a lot of people focus on in a master plan. But tonight we're going to focus on the transportation elements, and in the next workshop we will come back to zoning and design requirements. So in that space of transportation policy and investment tools, there's a handful of, there's 3 major categories of things that we can, of tools that we can use: laws, designs, and investments. So in the category of laws, we currently have adequate public facilities requirements that basically say the developer needs to provide the county with data on the new traffic they generate. And in some cases where they're contributing to additional congestion, they have to help to mitigate it. That may or may not be the right approach for a town center. I know that some jurisdictions don't necessarily apply their adequate public facilities requirements in a town center where they're trying to encourage development. Some jurisdictions have impact fees. Calvert County has excise taxes for roads and schools and solid waste. In the space of design, we can limit access to, for a Maryland 2-4, for example, as was discussed earlier about all the little driveways. We can establish a grid system or a cul-de-sac system of roads. We can require special pedestrian lighting or big roadway lighting. We can require setbacks to give a greater buffer for sidewalk space. And then the big thing is in the area of investments. So this doesn't necessarily get directly shown in a town center master plan, but we get to categorize and characterize the types of public investments that we'd like to see in a town center master plan. Now, we don't have complete control here over investments because many of the roads that we're talking about are state roads, but we can certainly use county funds to affect where and how SHA makes improvements on those roads. So in breakout session number 2, we are going to talk about investment choices that we can make in our town center master plan. We're going to ask that you put yourself in the shoes of the Planning Commission or the Board of County Commissioners to help bring to vision your vision, to help to bring to life your vision of the town center. And if you participated in the Transportation Master Plan process about 1.5 years ago, you might recall a similar exercise where we, in this case, are giving you about a dozen projects to choose from, totaling about $55 million. That your small group should discuss and debate, but we've only given you $25 million to spend, and that is a hypothetical $20 million or $25 million, but it's a number to shoot at. Excuse me. We have also built this GWiz calculator, so you can see it. And let me back up here. Let's see if this works. My GWiz mapping. Probably not going to come over to the, now you can see this. So there is a link that we sent out to folks that you could certainly look at, but our budget that we develop is supposed to reflect our values. So if we value getting more cars through town, then we would budget appropriately. If we value more walking and bicycling options, then we would invest our money there. And so in the map that your facilitators have and you were sent a link to, there's about a dozen projects, things like building a new sidewalk or a pathway along Dares Beach Road, either to the elementary school or all the way out to the bay. Could be sidewalks along Armory Road, could be improvements to Maryland 231. Even though this is a state road, the state highway would be certainly more likely to act if the county were to put up some money for those improvements. Although more expensive, it could be the East Side Loop Road that was talked about. It could be something that extends Chesapeake Boulevard up to above the hospital, or an option that's below the hospital. So there's a variety of improvements that your team can debate and discuss, and you get to set the priorities. And so our crack expert in calculators, Mr. Albert Engel, has developed this tool that you will use in your next breakout session, if I can bring that up. And let's see if this is going to work. So each of your teams will have those dozen or so projects. I might add that their transportation might not be your priority. You might want to see more money go to expand the senior center or to construct a town square. So you could choose those as well. So your facilitators will have this calculator, and you could choose a certain number of projects up to $25 million. And the way that we have built this, once you get past $25 million, it will kick you out and tell you that you have exceeded your budget. What's neat about the way that we've built this is that all of the groups are rolling up into one calculator. So when we come back after the session, we'll be able to see collectively what we thought the priorities ought to be. So for this budget exercise, we have, again, about 12 to 15 minutes. and Ms. Scarlett will move you back into your breakout rooms momentarily. These are imperfect projects. They are not fully defined or designed. So use your best judgment about what they are and how they could improve the quality of life in the Prince Frederick Town Center master plan. So with that, Scarlett, take us away.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm going to move everyone back into their breakout rooms. We are going to redistribute a few people just to make the group numbers more even. So if you're not in the room you were in the first time, don't panic. Ready, set, go.
Hey, Lakia, how are you? It looks like we have at least one new member, Randy.
Actually, it's Rundy Vote. He's my former supervisor and a retiree of Calvert County Planning and Zoning.
Good to have you. Good to have you.
I'm going to be staying a few minutes and then I'm going to be heading out to another room. So good to see everyone.
Good to see you too.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks.
Well, let's get started. I'm gonna, as Jamie said, our here we get to play with fake money, and so I'm gonna share my screen again and talk a little bit about these different projects that are possibilities here. Just give me a second. Share. Let me know when you can see my screen. So, as Jamie said, we have $55 million worth of projects in about $25 million of budget, exactly $25 million worth of budget to allocate. And so we won't be able to fund all the projects. So the way I would like to think about a task like this is to think about what are the must-haves and then to think about what are the nice-to-haves. And hopefully, as we go around and try and think about what our must-haves are, we can then try and fit those must-haves all into that $25 million bucket. And then whatever is left over, dollar-wise, we can split among the nice-to-have projects. So as Jamie mentioned, we have this sort of nifty map that shows the projects, which hopefully you can see. But I'll read them off and give a quick summary of them to start. So the first one is to construct a new pedestrian bridge from Armory Square to the west side of Maryland 2-4. So this would be a fully grade separated crossing of Maryland 2-4, probably would involve ramps or stairs. And it would be, the estimated cost for this in our hypothetical scenario is $3.5 million. We have a sort of amorphous bucket of $3 million to construct sidewalks in the town center. And this budget calculator does not give us any specific location where those should be, but allows us to say we think that we should spend X number of dollars on sidewalks. Then we do have some specific sidewalk locations that or trail pathway locations that are projects for us. So we have one that is to construct a new pathway along Dares Beach Road between Maryland 2-4 and Calvert Elementary School. And the cost for that in this exercise is $3.5 million. And then sort of a second pathway along Dares Beach between the elementary school and the bay, which has an estimated cost of $4.5 million. Then we finally have a set of trails and pathways along Main Street, Fairgrounds Road, and Armory Road from the sort of county and state office buildings along Main Street up to Dares Beach. And that has an estimated cost of $4 million. And then we have some road projects. So one would be to extend Chesapeake Boulevard, which is what the road that serves the middle school, to sort of Stokely Road, which was sort of cut off just south of the hospital, which would be $6.5 million, or run it around north of the hospital, which would cost $12 million. There would be a possibility to connect from the Fox Run Boulevard out to the high school, which would be about $6 million to connect. And then, as Amy mentioned, we have the opportunity to do some safety and operations improvements along 231 between 24 and the river. So those would be, specific safety improvements to try and address those any issues that are there safety-wise. And then we have a couple of non-locations or transportation projects. One is expanding the senior center, $2.5 million project. One would be expanding the Calvert transit service to be every 30 minutes, 6 days a week, and that would be $4.5 million. Or construct a town square for $3 million. So we have this whole sort of host of projects. I'm gonna have open this calculator, and I'm gonna keep the map open so we can go back and forth. But I want to start by asking each one of you for what your must-haves are. So I'm gonna, Lakia, again, start with you. So what would you say are your must-haves? And I'm gonna turn on all the must-haves as we go through them. And then once everybody's given their must-haves, we'll see where we are in our budget.
So they definitely have to do something about the Prince Frederick for that, because we're not serving our citizens who have less money and that can't drive or are handicapped.
Well, can I ask a question about that, please?
Yes,
sir. Where do people live? For example, if people live in developments, how would they use a transit system if they live in a development and can't drive?
Development. If you live within, I think it's a little over a mile from where the town centers, then the bus will actually go and pick you up.
And also, depending on your need, even if you live more than a mile, if you have a need, because I have a neighbor who goes to get dialysis, and the van actually comes into the neighborhood to his door and picks him up 2 or 3 times a week. So it depends on the need.
Yeah, it depends upon what your need is, because
Right.
I had to get to physical therapy, and I lived more than the 1 point something miles from the normal route, and they told me I had to go to a private van, and to go 1 point, it was a little less than a mile up to Dunkirk. The round trip with my wheelchair was going to cost me $160 each way, and to get to Prince Frederick, it was going to cost me $180 each way to get to my doctor's.
It sounds to me like we need to make a distinction between custom
economies, and we have a sewage treatment system connection that goes from 4 clear down to where we've invested in an industrial park.
Okay.
And so it only makes sense that we would encourage strengthening that as a future development corridor for economic development.
Okay, and what areas of Chesapeake Boulevard would you like to see expanded?
I want 7.
7?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other?
Yeah, I just have to say that I, before the pandemic, commuted to DC either by car or by bus. And I quite frankly, maybe it's because I'm from other suburbs of Maryland, but I don't feel like there's traffic here. I just don't think that the traffic is an issue here. I mean, in other parts of Maryland, you're literally sitting at a light and it turns 2 or 3 times before you cross it. I just don't see the traffic as a problem.
And that's because you've been from other places, and what we're trying to do is not to become those places. I think that part of maintaining the character of this area is the flow, and I think that having spent 16 years doing it to from Sunderland to 300 to 3rd and Rhode Island Northwest, I understand what you're saying about traffic comparatively. But if you're going to be in a community that prides itself on rural character and the rest, then there ought to be some aspects of that are consistent. And traffic is one of those.
Okay. Are there any other areas that we would like to see expanded?
or we'd like to spend some money on upgrading?
I think that number 6 with the building of we're building.
With your path to the bay, was that number 4 or number 5 that you were advocating?
Oh, I was looking at number 4.
Yeah, so was I.
Oh, okay. So instead of number 5 is number 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that would take us over. I am showing that Ashley might be in and Michelle is on in our group. Michelle, anything to contribute? Ashley?
9 and 10. Yep, I agree to 9 and 10.
You agree to 9 and 10? That's what I heard? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. This has been an excellent discussion. Again, there's additional spurious dollars available if anybody would like to add something or any further discussion as a group, please feel free.
You spend the rest of it on number 5, so that you're making the whole Old Town Main Street more walkable. It needs more pedestrian traffic, especially in the evening, if we're going to have anything interesting to do in Old Town in the evening.
That would take us $2 million over.
Yeah, so just spend whatever remaining money there is.
And then the only dollar amount we're able to adjust is for the sidewalks. Everything else is a yes or no, all or none.
Well,
so they could do yes on this and bring the sidewalks down $2 million to come up to the 25.
Let's see what everybody else thinks.
Because you'd have to have the pink road and the red road. I don't think we have the money for it.
What about the pedestrian bridge? This is
we have that.
We have that also.
Have that in there. Okay. I can't tell which ones are.
Oh, you know what we left out, I think. Did we want to construct the missing sidewalk segments? Was that something we talked about?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's in there,
That's. I thought it was in there. It's not.
Is it in there?
We used the full budget.
Okay.
Budget.
So what if we were to put all of the road improvement that you guys have been talking about and see if we are over budget?
Sure. You can always undo it.
Of course.
Boom.
Oh.
Act succeeded.
Okay. So, and if we took maybe, no. Clearly math isn't my strong point.
Well, why don't you try taking away the bridge and see if we can get there? No, not good enough.
Yeah. So that 12 million to extend that Chesapeake Boulevard from Calvert Middle to Auto Drive, that's one of the bigger expenses. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, it's almost half the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's worth it.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need from Calvert Middle to Stokely Road and Calvert Middle to Auto Drive, because Auto Drive is north of Stokely Road. So it would be, sorry. We could take out that 6.5 on number 6.
Okay, let's try that.
At 12. Does that get us there?
Oh, no.
Not with the pedestrian bridge that you guys want.
What if we decrease some on the sidewalks? Go down.
No,
we need sidewalks.
We got to have those sidewalks.
Yeah.
So where are we, 27?
So what?
So we're right at 25 if we keep the missing sidewalk segments at 1 million.
So it's 2 million. So if we want to increase the sidewalks, then what do we want to take out for 2 million? We don't want to take out the safety operations.
No.
Expanding the Calvert Pines Senior Center. I mean, Donna had a good point on that earlier, to look after our seniors.
Well, and we're going to double the number of seniors, so.
Right, so we need that.
Why don't we go back to the Boulevard to Calvert Middle to Stokely Road? Because that brings.
So they combine the other groups and they come up with a consensus. Is this what you're saying, Eric?
Yeah. So we'll see.
They combine what all the groups do, and you.
Yeah, we'll see a bar chart with how many groups picked each project, and we'll also see a pie chart representing the same data, so you can see what the community priorities are for these.
Well, one of the things I like to see, it's not, well, it's on here, but I didn't put in there because I don't see that as a priority in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And that is doing the Chesapeake perimeter road, like you have the Prince Frederick Boulevard on the east. Because if you do the perimeter roads like that, that takes off some of the traffic on 2-4, makes that more of a through road. Right now, people are going back and forth and cutting off. And as someone mentioned that you have people egressing and entering it, which slows down traffic and causes accidents. But if all the businesses can be entered from the perimeter roads, and 2-4 can be a north-south route.
Yes, I agree 100% because it's just like the Walmart. The Walmart, there's no reason for that not to exit out on Prince Frederick Boulevard.
Amen.
That is the worst thing that we have not done in this county.
Yeah.
That you can go right to the left side and come right down. There's an exit for it, and I don't know why our commissioners and or our safety people haven't pushed that, because that I've seen more and more accidents right there. People trying to cross in front of, get across there northbound coming to Walmart. So,
well, yeah, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, even that movie theater, I think they made their own path eventually.
Yeah, walking wise, yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, if you go on Prince Frederick Boulevard, you can see the back of the Walmart there. So why isn't there a drive there from off of there?
Right, I know.
And just think of the traffic that you can take off 2-4 if you had that there.
Man, that would be super, super.
But sometimes, like my son says, common sense is not so common all the time. Particularly when you're dealing with politicians.
I was going to say, I like your son. How is he doing?
Who is this?
This is Carolyn Sunderland.
Oh, he's doing fine. I had to get him off the line so I could get onto this. He and I talk every day, and he was down here the other day, last Sunday, and I'll be up there Thanksgiving, and everything. But he's been working from home since the first week in March.
You got like light after light after light, so when you hit what is like the fire department, it's just like constant lights, so I think that's what slows up a lot of the traffic too. Coming from Lusby, where I live at, it's like straight. You might hit, 1 or 2 lights, and then when you hit Prince Frederick area, it's like light.
Well, maybe I'll put more traffic signals in your keep out box too.
Yeah,
good.
Sometimes it's about geo. You just got to keep talking, and eventually it comes out, right?
Yeah, we do need the street lights, though. We got to keep everything.
And that's definitely important.
Mm-hmm.
We should be going back shortly.
This is Jenny. There's we're going to be going back at 6:40.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
We have 2 minutes.
Albert, did you add the streetlights to the ad matrix? We don't see them.
I'm working. I don't know that I still have that open. There we go. Here we go. Oops. City lifestyle. More traffic signals. What size would be there? 20.
Now, I do have a question though. With the new trails, if they make new trails, will that be like going towards like parks and stuff? Like they might consider doing like a little park, like a new parks, other than this one on 231 Highland Park, or would it just be like trails just to get from one area to the other?
They would probably be part, for transportation purposes, right? So you to get to some store or any one of these recreational things But it could also be for somebody who wants to go out and ride their bike, walk the dog, put the kid in the stroller and get some fresh air. It could be for both of those purposes.
Okay. Now I do have one more thing. The lady that left, she said something about a metro. Are they talking about like metro, like city metro, like system, or just like the public transportation that they already have?
I think I can't speak for her, but I think she was talking about having, she did not want to have any kind of rail transit coming down Route 4.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think she was talking about the existing bus system in Calvert County.
Mr. Zimmerman, the only thing real quick before we leave is that I think anybody that builds anything anywhere other than...
And we're getting our countdown clock here. So nice to talk to you. Thank you for participating. Feel free to keep sending emails and if you have any other comments or anything like that.
It looks like we are all back in the main room.
Great, welcome back. Let's see, is my screen being shared? Not yet. Okay, hopefully you can see a pie chart and a bar chart on your screen. This was happening in real time. So if you watch election results and see people at the big board pointing at this and pointing at that, we saw the votes coming in live. It was very interesting to see that in the beginning of the conversations, there were very few groups that were choosing investments in the bicycle and pedestrian realm. So 3, 4, and 5, the Dares Beach side path, either all the way to the bay or just over to the elementary school. But there was a lot of interest in doing kind of minor sidewalk improvements, filling in some of the gaps that are out there. There was obviously a lot of interest in finding a way to build that town center, that sense of place that people have been longing for in the town center planning process. Interestingly, when it comes to Chesapeake Boulevard and extending it up to either Stokely Road or all the way up north of the hospital, that didn't come out as much of a priority for most of the groups. Only 2 groups even mentioned it at all. So, certainly none of this is intended to be scientific or a formal poll in any kind of way. We live in a world where we elect people to make decisions on our behalf using their best information around budget impacts, public needs. And so I think we see fairly representative here what some of the priorities are that the Planning Commission, the Planning and Public Works staff, and the Board of County Commissioners would have to think about. So I do appreciate you all participating in this exercise. It I think was very, very instructive. So with that,
Jamie, are we allowed to ask you questions?
Who is that?
This is Bob Estes.
Well, apparently you've already got the floor. So unless Jenny yells at me, I'll take 2 or 3 because we're short on time.
Yep. My question was,
Yes, it's good.
what the areas that you're bypassing with the east side loop, the green undeveloped areas, do we know if there's any thought as to what those will become eventually and why we would need a road there? And I'll leave the answer to you all.
Sure. Without getting overly specific, the East Side Loop Road was in the 1989 Town Center Master Plan. It was shortened in the Charette, or recommended to be shortened in the Charette to be closer to the south side of the hospital. Whether or not there is true kind of travel demand from a technical perspective, I think that's something we're probably going to test as we look at various scenarios. So I don't want to necessarily say why it would or wouldn't be justified, but we'll be able to take a look and have some data on that.
Hello, may I make a suggestion to you? This is Ella Ennis, and I'm looking at the chart on the screen, and the blue writing is not readable for me, and maybe it is for others, but if it could be just a little larger and a little darker, I think we'd be able to make better, we could really understand it a little better.
Is that a little better?
Yes. now I can't see the circles.
Yeah, one or the other.
Right. Maybe you could go from one to the other. Yes. Okay.
And I think what we can do is capture these photos and then share them on our county website for the project page so that you don't have to study it in depth right now, but we will be posting the results later.
We'll definitely be summarizing all this.
If you have a Mac, you can squeeze it and expand it. So I had a problem looking at it too, but I just put my fingers on it and expanded it so I could read it.
You're a smarter man than I. All right. Well,
in the upper
thank you
right
so
hand
much.
corner, there's a little thing that says view, and you can make a full screen, and that'll help you too.
I learn something new every day.
If I can, I'd like to have one comment.
Yes, sir. Is that Mr. Fun?
No, this is Jones.
Oh, sorry about that.
The Chesapeake Boulevard extension. I just want to remind everyone that 3 out of the 4 schools we have in Prince Frederick would be served by that. The parent transportation in the evenings that goes east to the high schools, the elementary school, the middle school, and the rest, Chesapeake Boulevard, I think, has significance in the traffic pattern there. And while it may not, we may want to be incremental in it, I think as we think about trails and access, we need to think about where people go and what the process is. And as one who lives across the street from an elementary school who can't get out of his driveway when school either starts or closes, I think that before that becomes an issue in Prince Frederick, we should consider alternate road patterns.
Thank you so much. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Jenny and to the chairman to wrap us up for the evening.
Thank you, Jamie. I hope everybody enjoyed the discussion in their breakout rooms. I have a few slides. If Jamie could share his show again, please. So what I'd like to note is that we had at our March meeting, when we met in person at the College of Southern Maryland, we asked the attendees if they wanted to participate in virtual tours. And we had talked about walking and bicycling and hiking and getting on the bus. And people were very enthusiastic about those virtual tours. Little did we know that about 2.5 weeks later, COVID would come and things would be shutting down. So unfortunately, we're not able to meet in person, but staff decided earlier that we needed to do those tours, but since we couldn't meet in person, we would do them virtual. So I'd like to recognize Ruth Davis Rogers for her work on creating the King Memorial Park virtual walking tour and the Old Town Prince Frederick tour. I think King Memorial Park is just a hidden gem that many people do not know about, and this video will give them an introduction. And then the Old Town Prince Frederick walking tour, Ruth has blended both current video along with historic photos. So please take a look at those. Those are available via a link from our project page on the county website. And just released while we've been in this meeting, at least my fingers are crossed, I'm sure it has been, but there is a brand new video on walking that Daryl Baxter created. And so that's should be available tonight. And then also the bicycling video is in final production. And then we'll be doing soon local transit, commuter buses, and then also vehicles. So please keep an eye on Facebook and also the county project page. These videos are going up on there and also the county's YouTube site. Moving on to the next slide, please. We are in the town center master plan update process overall for all the town centers. The Planning Commission endorsed a 3-phased process, and the first phase is to identify issues. And that's what we worked on in January of this year and March, and now this evening with your time here. with us. So from this phase, this is wrapping up this identify issues phase. We'll be moving into the develop the plan, where staff will be working to prepare a draft that will be shared with the community. It'll be the staff draft, and we will be inviting your comments on that draft. We'll share those comments with the Planning Commission, at which time the Planning Commission will consider comments and then direct staff to make revisions and eventually come up with the Planning Commission's recommended plan, which they will take to public hearing, at which point the public will have another opportunity to provide comments. The Planning Commission will consider those comments and then decide on what plan to move forward to the county commissioners. At that point, the Planning Commission term ends and it goes to the commissioners. The commissioners will hold at least one public hearing to provide opportunity again for the public to make their wishes known, at which time the commissioners will make a final decision on the plan. They can adopt it, amend it, send it back to the Planning Commission, or reject it. If we could move on to the next slide, please. And this is our project page, so please visit us at www.calvertcountymd.gov/town center update. To receive notices, please check out the county's website under the Notify Me section and select Planning and Zoning. You will receive direct messages about project updates. Follow us on Facebook. They're posted up there. And then you can always contact staff. We have a project email address, towncenterupdate@calvertcountymd.gov, or you can call us during regular business hours, 8:30 to 4:30. I thank you very much. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Chairman Steve Jones, who's just off to my side.
Jenny, thank you so much. Fantastic job tonight. I want to thank staff, Vice Chair Bueller, for your help. And more importantly, during COVID, we learned a group of folks in county government that we're leaning on very hard, and that's technology services people. And I can't thank you enough. You all are doing a fantastic job and putting this together. I was really unsure about how this would work, but the interacting with this seemed to work very well. I have to tell you, from my perspective, I've learned a few things, and that's certainly information that I'm going to take back with me for the future. One closing remark, Miss Ella, did you get all your questions answered, ma'am? Did you get what you needed?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yes, I think so. I think they did, and I would like to know: will the master plan include densities of population? In other words, if you're going to recommend an area for townhouses, will it give us the density of that population in the master plan?
The master plan provides general guidance. It's actually through the zoning regulations that specifies density. So the plan will give guidance on roughly what that density should be, but it will not be specific. That'll be left up to the zoning ordinance update for the Prince Frederick plan. So it's a two-step process. There's the plan that sets the vision, and then there's the zoning regulations, which are actually the rules and regulations for when development occurs. So that'll be in the later process. So thank you for that question.
This is Shelley. Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah, this will be the last one, but yes, sir.
All right. When can I see the site plan for construction on Main Street at Executive Plaza? Site plan for the new construction at Executive Plaza.
When it becomes available, it hasn't even been designed yet.
Next year?
Potentially.
Okay.
Yes. As soon as it hits, I would keep an eye on our SEG, TEG, or technical evaluation group is where our commercial site plans get reviewed, and it will go through that process.
All right.
So I would keep an eye on the website.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, and the TEG, SEG agendas, yes, are posted on the website. The meetings are generally the fourth Thursday of the month.
Thank you.
What about environmental impact? I really would like to get that. How can I get the environmental impact of this?
Okay, so folks, again, that was the last question. I don't want to cut anyone off, but that's not the purpose of where we're at right now. So with that said, in closing remarks, what I want to say to everyone is happy Thanksgiving. God bless you all. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you.
The same to you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks for participating.